Well, this morning I've been educating myself a little bit on British cartooning, specifically the cartoonists who've appeared in this volume of Punch the first 6 months of 1898. It's a bound volume that I picked up from a local Port Townsend bookshop that was going out of business. And their price on the book was $30, but when I purchased it, I got it at the going out of business rate of $1. I really don't know a whole lot about Punch. I can tell you it started in, if I remember right, 1841. And I think it continued until 1992. And it was owned by these guys, Bradbury, Agnew, and Company, the printers. This seems to have often happened with magazines. The printers would end up owning the magazine because the publisher couldn't pay their bill. Anyway, it was revived in 1996 for a few years. I think it finally stopped in 2001, 2002, something like that. In the mid-1800s, it was hugely influential. John Tenniel was the primary artist. This is his work here. You might know the name from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. He illustrated both of those books for Lewis Carroll. He illustrated Alice in 1865 and Through the Looking Glass in 1871. But he was the signature cartoonist for Punch magazine for about 50 years. And yeah, anyway, I'm just going to flip through these pages and make some observations. And I'm not sure who this artist is. His style is very recognizable to me, but I have trouble reading the signature, but I think this could be Lindsay Symington. Other than that, I really don't know much about him. I took this book off my shelf this morning to look at it because I recently bid on a lot of books by the British cartoonist Phil May, and I lost. I just couldn't afford the price after it went up so high. But I remembered that I had bought this book and noticing that it had some cartoons by Phil May. And I've recently begun to appreciate what a great cartoonist he was. He's significant in the history of cartooning because he simplified his art, and he helped move cartooning away from the sort of the rigid Victorian style of humorous illustration toward a more modernistic style, impressionistic, a much looser hand, a much looser line. And so he's significant for that reason. However, and he was very influential. However, there's something else that's noticeable about his work, which is worth always looking at in a Phil May cartoon, and that's his ability to infuse individual detail into his characters. His characters aren't merely just drawings or illustrations. They're actual characters. They're actual people. We'll be talking more about Phil May. He's got a lot of... He pretty much has a cartoon in every issue. And this came out weekly. So... oh, another artist who I'm not quite sure who that is. Several artists here. I don't really know who they are, but they show up often in these pages. Here's Tenniel again. He often has a full page and it's politically oriented. What's this one? Another sick man. The Sultan, cheerily. Going to pieces, old man? Nonsense. All you want is a dose of Concert of Europe. Why, look at me. You know, the context is not available to me in this moment, so I really don't know what's going on here. I can appreciate, though, the fine art, and especially the great engraving. And interestingly, the engraver's name is included. His signature. There's the signature of John Tenniel. Great signature. And then here's the signature of the engraver, whose name was Joseph Swain. And just a few years after Punch was founded, he became the engraving manager. And after about a year, he set up his own shop. And he handled all the engravings for Punch until 1900. So all the engravings for Punch came out of the shop of Joseph Swain. This is a really interesting artist. He's a bit more modern as well. Look at the sort of the screwball flavor of just how goofy people are being here. But of course it's all in a, you know, British humor, remarkable effect of a nautical candidate on an ordinarily staid community. And what he's doing is he's taking a quote and he's illustrating it literally. The infectious high spirits and the jovial saltwater style of Lord Charles Beresford cannot fail to take effect upon his supporters. Daily paper. So he's taken that quote and now he's illustrating it literally. And this is something you'll see a lot in early cartooning and in America as well. You know, he's obscure, but one guy I know of that did it was Ving Fuller. He had something called Laughographs, and he would illustrate news pieces literally. Interesting, weird news stories. Anyway, lots of text here to read. It's all in English, so that's cool. You can read it. Here's a Phil May. This is an illustration for a review of a play. So this is his portrait of actors on a stage. And look how wonderfully he's captured that. You really can see that these are actors portraying people. They're not the people themselves. Here's another Lindsay Symington. Really, he got a lot of full pages, and his art style is, you know, really striking. And it's kind of interesting how, coming all out of the same shop, the engraver was able to keep the cartooning styles separate and distinct. For example, look how distinct this style is with its close hatching and kind of overall dark lighting and softness compared to the crisp, open hatching of this art. Fascinating. Fascinating, folks. Now, a lot of times, you know, I've read that the cartoonists themselves did not write these captions. These were the job of the editors or whoever the editors would hire to write these captions. The cartoonists would merely create the comic situation. I don't know, I think maybe sometimes they would write a caption, but if the editor had come up with a better one, they would come up with it. But this is basically what magazine cartooning was in 1898, both in Britain and America, and probably other countries as well. You have a nice illustration with a gag underneath. Let's see what this gag says. My hair is getting quite gray and will remain so as long as I live. Well, you know, dear, you can always make it remain blonde as long as you die. A little play on words, a little witticism. The frivolous triviality and cornball nature of this pun seems wildly out of balance with this elaborate illustration. I mean, look at all the cross-hatching. And this, folks, the artist created this, right, with pen and ink, and then it was carved into wood by the engraving shop. Think about how challenging it would be to do that. Now, these drawings were printed at this time through a process called electrotyping. And so the art would be carved in wood, and then they would press the wood into wax, and then they would use a process involving chemicals and electricity to coat a plate with metal, usually copper. Wow, look at this very different style. And this is by an artist named Edward Tennyson Reed, who lived from 1860 to 1933. He had started with Punch about 5 years prior, and he has a very cartoony style, and he likes to do his own lettering, which is kind of hard to read, but it certainly gives his work a distinct flavor. I don't understand this series, and you'll see this continues throughout the book. I think these are caricatures of existing figures of the day, and I don't know who they are, not being an expert in British history, so the humor is a bit lost on me. Anyway, the wax mold got covered with a thin sheet of metal, usually copper, and then you had durable metal plates that would allow you to just make numerous copies. And around this time, I guess, Punch was selling 40, 50, 60,000, something like that. So you can imagine a wood plate would get worn down and fuzzy, but the metal plate keeps it absolutely crisp. I mean, folks, this is sharp artwork. Now, this is a really distinctive cartoon, right? Right here. And this artist is interesting. His name is C. Harrison or Charles Harrison. He was born in 1860 and he lived until 1943. And his more than anybody else in this book, his stuff stands out to me as being, quote unquote, more American looking. And in fact, he also sold to Judge Magazine. So here's another Phil May. I like to just study it before I read the caption. This is interesting. There's two different bells. There's a bell for visitors and there's a bell for servants. Okay, let's read the caption. Brown, who has been dining at the club with Jones. Just come in a minute, old fellow, and have a nightcap. Jones. I'm afraid it's getting a little late. Let's see how's the enemy. Brown. Oh, that's all right. She's in bed. Now, I guess this refers maybe to a saying, like time is the enemy of us all. I guess he's checking his watch. But, of course, the joke is there's a comic misunderstanding. But look at the fine detail right there in that profile. Phil May could really draw people, but that comes not just from an ability to render, but from an ability to observe. I don't know his biography, but I know that he grew up with some hardship from humble beginnings. And unfortunately, the fellow died at age 39 in 1903. And this is 1898, so he's got 5 years left when we're seeing these. Here's another artist that captures my attention, Bernard Partridge. He has a very distinctive style. You see a lot of these. Now, his dad was, I believe, president of the College of Surgeons or something like that. Pretty high-ranking dude in society and probably wealthy. And his cartoons reflect the upper class. Spoiled children. Well, they're not spoiled. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Judgmental on my part. But children growing up in wealthy circumstances. You know, there's the maid. There's the older gentleman. And look how well appointed the house is and how well dressed everybody is. Let's see what the joke is here. Grandpapa, well, little lady, will you give me a lock of that pretty hair of yours? Marjorie, who's the kid. Yes, Grandpa, but, hesitating, I don't think one lock would be enough, would it? So it's a sweet little innocent joke about Grandpa being bald. And that's all there is to it. It's just a sweet little charming vignette. And that was enough to amuse people back in 1898. Here's another Tenniel. This is John Bull, England's equivalent to Uncle Sam. John Bull. What, mateys? Want some of my coal to get to China? Right you are. I can always stop the supplies, to himself. And that's Russia right there. So, relationship between England and Russia. Let's find another Phil May. Here's another one of those weird Animal Land comics. Yeah, enough said about that. Let's see. Actually, there's something else I wanted to find. I hope I haven't overlooked it. Yeah, it's right here. We had first, let's look at this page for a second. This is the Persecuted MP, Chorus of Vampires, Give, Give. So this is a very interesting cartoon. It's depicting vampires in 1898. I don't know what year Bram Stoker's book Dracula came out, but it's kind of interesting. These are pretty cartoony vampires, but they are eating this guy alive. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, so Lewis Carroll, we mentioned Tenniel's relationship with Lewis Carroll as his illustrator of the English classic Alice in Wonderland books. Well, Lewis Carroll happens to die during the publication of this magazine on January 14th, 1898. And here's a poem that was written for him. And this is their tribute to Lewis Carroll. Lover of children, fellow heir with those of whom the imperishable kingdom is. Beyond all dreaming, now your spirit knows the unimagined mysteries. Very flowery Victorian poetry, and nowhere near as clever or as good as Carroll's poetry. And right underneath it is an interesting cartoon. This isn't the bearded lady from Barnum's on her Sunday out, but it is simply the effect of the fashionable Medici collar by Charles Harrison. And that's a reference to P.T. Barnum's American Museum, which was going strong in New York City at the time. And then on the right, we've got a delicious Phil May cartoon. The caption is, Disadvantages of Performing at a Country House in the Wasp Season. So here's a violinist. And look at that. It's a wasp right in front of his eyes. And look how beautifully captured his profile is. Raised brow, the wrinkles, the way the hair is slicked back. and how, you know, it all seems perfectly natural, but it's also all contrived to zero in on that point of the wasp. And then all the people around looking on, everything zeroes in on that little tiny wasp. And look how loose his line is, how sketchy everything is, except for this one area right here, which is where he wants us to focus. Now, I've read that, you know, people assumed he was just kind of, he left out the detail as he was drawing, like, but actually he had an involved process of drawing and redrawing and working to eliminate any unnecessary details. So his process was actually fairly laborious and very well considered. And that actually is what good design and good art, the production of it, often involves, is a process of what can be taken away. You cannot mistake this guy's art, Bernard Partridge, again. Lots of cross-hatching, beautiful use of light and shadow, beautiful capturing of folds, textures, hair. I mean, this guy was like the Wally Wood of his day. Some guy named L. Raven, I don't know who that is, L. Ravenhill. After a while, I mean, at first, all these densely hatched, fairly static, you know, drawings look alike. But after a while, you get to the point where you can start to distinguish the different styles. Now, this particular artist, to me, a couple of times I thought, oh, another Phil May. But it's not. It's some guy named Armour. I don't know anything about this artist yet. But he's not nearly as good as Phil May. For example, the detailing in the faces is nowhere near what Phil May does. There's another Symington. It's like almost, I don't know, it's almost abstract. Everything's reduced down to this, it's almost too flat. There's not a lot of life in the drawing, to me. And compare that to this drawing by our buddy Phil May. First off, drawing a foreshortened horse is not easy, folks. Horses are hard to draw. And look at this unusual physical posture he's captured. And look at that face. I mean, you can tell the guy is passed out drunk. You don't even need to read the caption. But let's see what it says. Old Farmer Jones, and that's this guy right here. I thought maybe he was a boy, but it's Old Farmer Jones. He's basically a country bumpkin who has been to a local cattle show and seen a horseless carriage for the first time. Musher Karsh may be all very well, but they can't find their way home by themselves. And now, I think what this gag is talking about is how the horseless carriage didn't have the personality of the horse. Now, I've often heard that horses could find their way home. People would fall asleep on them. And in fact, my friend Jim, his grandfather left a short memoir, which is really great. I wish he would have written more. And in it, he talks one time about how, as a boy, he was coming home from far away, riding his horse through the night. And he fell asleep on his horse. And when he woke up, he was at his home. His horse knew the way home. Hunting Study. Another artist I don't know anything about. Reginald Cleaver. Here's Charles Harrison again. Very graphic style, very, very cartoony, not at all illustrative, more cartoony sensibility. And this is a notice in a paper about how in Paris, landscapes are being painted on the soles of new boots. And then here he's imagining what different artists might paint on the sole of a boot. And I guess there are, somehow this is amusing. The only one artist that I know right here is Aubrey Beardsley. And sure enough, that actually looks like Beardsley's style. So he's captured something of Beardsley there. Yeah. Also in that auction was a lot of Aubrey Beardsley books. Oh, man, I wish I would have. I put a bid in on it, but that one went beyond my means as well. However, I did win some stuff. And I'll probably be sharing some of that with you later on. Life magazines from from the first 3 years of life. Bound volumes, a stack of Judge magazines, Le Rire, 8 bound volumes of the French humor magazine, and I think 18 bound volumes of German magazine called, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Fliegchen Bladder. Obviously, I'm still learning about all this stuff. I remember visiting Art Spiegelman in his studio, and it's like a library. It's heaven for cartoon fans. It's like the world's best comics reading room. It's an apartment, and he stuffed it full of books and comics, as well as his art table and art supplies and tools. Here's another film, and we only had a brief while, and of all things, he took out to show me. He took out his copies of L'Assiette Beurre, which is a French magazine from around the same time, late 19th, early 20th century. And the art in it is absolutely stunning. Beautiful cartooning, loose, open, progressive, experimental, brilliant. Had me flip through those. He also, he showed me stuff by artists from other countries, is the point. And that's kind of what Raw did for us. Oy vey. I really wish they wouldn't have done stuff like this. And so, arts encouraged me to expand my understanding of comics, my study of comics, in my reading, just by basically my reading and enjoyment of comics outside the borders of America. And I thank him for that. Here's another film, and man, look at that profile. Isn't that great? And look at the look of annoyance on this guy's face. Okay, so with that setup, tenor singing, "Oh, appy, appy, appy be thy dreams." Professor, stop. Why don't you sound the H? Tenor, it don't go no higher than G. Meaning the notes. It's a... the caption, the quality of the caption does not match the quality of the cartoon. Enough said. Okay, nice dog cartoon. I am trusted with the muzzle. If I had my mouth, I would bite. And that's from Much Ado, Shakespeare's play. Tenniel and Swain. Bernard Partridge. Oh man, I just love these Bernard Partridge drawings. It just makes me want to live like that, have a rattan wicker chair, a beautiful wife and child, and this lovely home, and with a cat. I mean, it's just a beautiful picture of upper middle class, or upper-class domesticity. Mummy dear, can't we play and be jolly together? You are so dreadfully grown up. Such gentle humor. Here's that Harrison dude again. Imagining statues lit up at night. Yeah, there's so much here, and I'm not even halfway through this. This video could go on for another hour easily, but I think you've caught the flavor. I want to get through. Here's another wonderful film A. It's a costume party. Brown as Hamlet. That's this guy. 2. Jones as Charles II. Enormous amount of taste displayed here tonight. Again, the humor, it doesn't amuse me that much. The wit is so dry and it's difficult to tune into it. But I love the characterization and the drawing style. Here's a weird one by that Symington fellow, showing the exoticism of, that was also an interest of the time. Yeah, there is one I want to get to. Involving the Prime Minister, William Gladstone. When did he pass away? So Lewis Carroll dies. I like that art style. Lewis Carroll passes away in January. I think in May. We're in March here. Another Bernard Partridge. Child's domestic, comfortable upbringing. Mommy, let me have some water to question my dolly with. No, darling, it's wrong to make fun of holy things. Well, let me vaccinate her. I'm sure she's old enough to have something done to her. Yeah. Okay. Another beautiful film A. Oh my God. Look at the, I mean, in addition to the wonderful profiles, and profiles aren't easy to draw, the way he captures the context, the architectural details of the city, and look, even the dog has a personality. He did a book, he was known for drawing what were then called gutter snipes, you know, street people, basically. Let's see what this gag is. I want to buy a dog. I don't know what they call the breed, but it is something of the shape of a greyhound with a short curly tail and rough hair. Do you keep dogs like that? No, I drowns them. Oy vey. That reminds me, though, you know, I've worked in 13 different bookstores, and it's very common for people to come into the bookstore and say, I'm looking for a book. I don't remember the name. I don't remember the author, but it's got a green cover with a picture of a flower on it. Do you have that? Well, sir, the green books are kept over on aisle 14. And the ones with flowers on the cover are on shelf 39. Bernard Partridge. Dang, the guy could draw folds and lighting. Crap. Anyway, I was trying to get to the Gladstone page. Somewhere in here, Gladstone dies, and there's a tribute to him. It's not really a spectacular drawing, but it's just historically interesting. You begin to see, you know, repetition of the same artist in every issue. There's no, you notice there's no cover, by the way, in these, separating these. Also notice the page numbers. start again with each issue. They're continuing, and that's because ultimately what they wanted to do was publish it in a book like this, right? So this is 1898, volume 1. Actually, it doesn't say volume 1. So volume 114. There it is. Thank you. Volume 114. Volume 1 would go back to the beginning of Punch, 1841. So each volume was a year, right? And so each page, the page numbering would start again when the year starts again. And that's how they would do that. You know, nowadays magazines don't do that. Oh man, oh God, look at that. Phil May again. Now, another thing about Phil May I've read is that he was pretty racist, and some of his cartoons are racist. I don't think this is necessarily, but I don't really know. Ari, who's Old Dutch, I guess that's her, old lady, has been shopping and has kept him waiting a considerable time. What do you mean, keeping me standing around here like a bloomin' fool? I can't help the way you stand, Ari. Ha ha. But I could look at the drawings like this all day long. Really wishing I'd dug a little deeper and gotten that Phil May on it. I'm going to have to get some of his stuff. There's another Phil May. Okay. Here's Harrison again. I mean, this guy, he had such a cartoon. It kind of reminds me of Art Young, really. I wonder if there was an influence. Oh, that's a nice Phil May. Look at that overhead shot with perspective. And look how each person has character. Even this guy up in the upper right-hand corner. What's the joke? Notes of travel. Irish immigrant. Emerging from the hold feebly. The storage feebly. Where's the sails? What makes the ship go along? Fellow passenger. This ain't no sailing ship. This is a steamship, this is. 15,000 horsepower. Irish immigrant. 15,000 horses? Think of that now. And where's the stabling? In other words, where are they putting the poop? Phil May had some cartoons that I don't know if this was his idea or the editor just wrote that caption to fit this picture. But he's commenting on technological change in his cartoons in some points, which I think anticipates where cartoons were going to go very shortly, all over the place, as the advance of technology rapidly increased. Idea of decorating trains like Chinese dragons. Charles Harrison again. Oh, Punch. Hey, there's Punch. Punch and Judy. So the name of this magazine comes from the Punch and Judy marionette shows. I always thought Punch worked on different levels. I mean, Punch could also be what you drink, right? It's like a mixture of different fruits and flavors, making a very intoxicating, sweet concoction, which is kind of like what this magazine is. But it also, what else is a punch? Boom, right? And it kind of does that at times. It's not really that aggressive compared to how cartooning was in some places. Like think about yellow journalism, that's coming up at the same time. But the meaning's there. Kind of like Mad Magazine, right? Mad is such a great name because it works on different levels. So like Mad, woo, crazy, crazy, crazy. But also like Mad, like I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You know, you've got both of that in the name, and you've got that in the name Punch. And of course, this is where the concept of cartoons comes from. But I have to stop for a minute and look at this Charles Harrison automatic dentist machine. Teeth extracted. Drop a penny in the slot and release forceps. Ay, ay, ay. A machine for amputation is being installed at the emergency hospital at Boston. Daily Mail. The automatic dentist will no doubt follow the amputation machine. Ay, ay. But, and that's, you're going to see cartoons like this all the way into the 20s and 30s. In, you know, magazines like Life and Judge in America, as well as Punch. Oh, heck, I forgot what I was talking about. Hey, speaking of Punch, there's Punch again. Egyptianized. This has got to be Harrison. Yeah, Charles Harrison. According to the Daily News, some scholar, it proves that the Egyptians had comic papers. This gets back to the old idea that comics first appeared in Egyptian cartouches, etc., that sort of thing. But here's a nice send-up of the whole concept. Yeah, shoot, I was talking about something and then I got sidetracked. Oh well. Sorry. You can see my ADD type mind there at work. Of course, these days, because of the internet, everybody's got ADD pretty much. Another Charles Harrison. This one's not as overtly cartoony. This is a little bit more quote-unquote normal and illustrative. French scientist is said to have invented a method of administering pills to plants so as to keep them in good health. So here's the plant hospital. There's the doctor examining the patient. And here's the waiting room with the plants. Nice. So I don't know where that stone went. Oh my God. But this film is just a work of art. Look at this. It's this couple. Look at their faces. Look at the face on that woman. Can't you just hear her rough, gravelly voice? And the guy, what a good-natured, lighthearted humor they're both in. It's two people who love to laugh, and they're laughing at themselves in a funhouse mirror with its distortion. I say, Ari, don't we look frights? Oh my God, what a beautiful cartoon. Look how hasn't put any detail whatsoever on her dress or coat or whatever that is. Just, oh man, this is just really great drawing. Love the swirl of that smoke. Nice cartooning. Oh, this one caught my eye too. Here's another one by that Simonton guy. King of the Seas, King Cole. Aha, peace or war, they can't get on without me. How true. Reminds me of our dependence on oil and going to war over oil in our era. Back then, coal was critical. And that's a coal bucket right there. And there's the King Neptune or King Cole. I like his flag. Isn't that neat? Spade. Yeah, well, many, many riches. The promised Gladstone page has not yet appeared. And this video is very long. I think it may be the longest I've done. Oh my gosh, here's another Phil May. The Wonderful Trunkless Head, This Way to the Talking Horse. Oh, they must be at some sort of carnival or country fair. Yeah, and in fact, the caption is, at a country fair, You'll never get me to believe in them delusions, as them delusions is real. Delusions instead of illusions. But look at the skepticism captured on those in the faces and in the body language. Love that face right there. Should call this video Looking for Gladstone. Oh, I can't resist another Phil May. He always seems to have the right-hand page. Whew. Is that disease? Has she been beaten up by her husband? Let's see. Chemist to battered female who is covered with scratches. The cat, I suppose, which is what I guess women who beaten by their husbands would say. Battered female. No, another lady. One senses she's actually telling the truth in this case. That's a pretty good gag. I don't know who this cartoonist is. Nurse, nurse, Bobby's out of bed and running about in his bananas. Okay. Some of these captions are amusing to me. And then we have the very weird Charles Harrison again. What the heck? I mean, this is like picture book style illustration. It's Jack in the Box and toys, a wind-up mouse. The Lothar Arcade is to be sold by public auction early May. I don't know what that is, so that's probably why this doesn't make much sense to me. But, you know, it's toys coming alive. It's Toy Story. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what happened to the Gladstone page. I must have flipped right up past it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So there's the cartoon. Prime Minister of England passed away, and he was especially beloved by the working class. He believed in equality of opportunity. Another, like we had with Lewis Carroll, another verse appreciating him and honoring him. Some in the promise of an early prime, ere yet the first assault is dared and won, death takes with envious hand before their time, leaving the task undone. Yeah, well, and the cartoon is kind of creepy. I mean, it's a ghost, and I think this is a reference to a Shakespearean play, perhaps. I don't know why there's a Roman guard at the foot of his tomb. And now, with all your armor laid aside, swift eloquence your sword, and for your shield, the indomitable courage that defied the fortune of the field. Blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting historical note. So there you go, folks. There's a little bit about Punch. I'm educating and learning. Here's another icon in addition to John Bull. That's Britannia, who I think at this time was, you know, sort of representational of the warlike aspect of Great Britain. Britannia is meditatively saying, I think Uncle Sam would be a good partner, and so would Little Jap. I wonder if my cousin German William will ask me too. This is prior to World War I. The great powers of the world at that time forming alliances, and Britain is considering an alliance with America, with the United States, I suppose. I mean, that's my simplistic interpretation. Again, I'm not a student of world history, and politics leaves me completely baffled. But on the right-hand side, and we'll end here, Phil May. Holy smokes, look at that. Well-fed, not particularly delicate sensibilities, got some money, Millionaire, oh yeah, got some money, who has been shown into a fashionable artist studio and has been kept waiting a few minutes. Shop! That says something about the relationship of commerce and art and the commodification of art. An artist is seen as nothing more than a servant, shopkeeper. But we're valuing them, and we certainly value you, Phil May, even though you did create apparently some fairly racist cartoons. We haven't seen any in these pages, and there's more to learn. All right, guys, thanks.